Hello and welcome back to Mark's NOTCAST. If you're a repeat viewer or a first-time visitor, bonjour, all are welcome. It is number 468 and today on the 18th of November 2025 I am talking about two records and one record at the same time. As you may have gathered from the title of the episode, I am talking about popular British beat combo, the Oasis, and their fourth studio record, Standing on the Shoulder of Giants, and their first official live album, Familiar to Millions, both recorded and released around about 1999 to 2000, a staggering 25 years ago. And before we get too much further, instead of us going to 1999 and the year 2000, we're going to go all the way back to the 5th of February 1675. Why that far back? What relevance has it got to this particular record? Well, Sir Isaac Newton, formerly just known as Isaac Newton, had been accused of plagiarising his theory of the colour of light, and by another scientist called Robert Hooke. And in a letter on the 6th of February 1675, well, 5th of February 1675, he wrote, "If I had seen further, it is because I am standing on the shoulders of giants." An epic literary smackdown from a scientist, effectively saying, I have no need to pinch ideas from you or anybody else. And that is what this album title comes from. The idea of Noel effectively saying, I don't need to steal ideas from anyone because I am bloody amazing. Modest to the last. It is also inscribed on the side of £2 coins, standing on the shoulders of giants. Oasis being Oasis, of course, they have to not only make the record cover look like an E there, but they have to misquote it and miss the second S, the shoulders, the plural, implying that somehow Oasis, Noel Gallagher himself, is just standing on one shoulder of a giant because the giant is so big he doesn't need to stand on both shoulders. Well, there you go. And before we get much further into the episode, we have to go even further back than 1675 to the dim, dark ages of 1998 and the last days of Creation Records, Oasis's then record label. Generally best described in this brick of a book, the Creation Records story, My Magpie Eyes Are Hungry for the Prize. And there are two things that I read in this that really stood out. One, of course, Oasis record label Creation ended in January 2000, and January 2000 the last album that they released was Primal Scream's Exterminator, which is a fab record, but the last one that they released. Creation Records had a problem, or more correctly they had an Oasis problem, which is that when they didn't release Oasis records they didn't do particularly well. In one particular, so let's say 1996, in an average year, 134 singles were released every week, of which 12 singles were picked up by Woolworths, if you want to go a bit further back into the days when Woolworths existed. And of those 12 singles, not all of them were hits. I remember going into Woolworths on a Monday morning, in the days when I was going to school, and picking up all the X-Chart singles and the singles that never charted. And if you hadn't been picked up by Woolies, you weren't going to be a hit, because Woolies was the biggest seller of physical singles in the UK. Of the 75 singles that Creation Records issued in about 1998, 36 went in the top 40. Of the other 37, only 6 didn't make the top 75. But the problem was not that these bands were big, not that these bands had legs, but because these bands had rabid fan bases that bought a record on the day it came out, and then nobody who heard it would then kind of go, oh, that's quite good, I'll go and listen to it. And because I can, there is a lovely bitchy comment about Shed 7 in here. And let's see if I can find it, talking about Shed 7, which is going, are Shed 7 successful? Well, yes, because they get into the top 20 with most of their singles. But are Shed 7 successful? No, because you ask most people, they couldn't name a Shed 7 song. And of course, if you think about somebody like Spice Girls, for example, let's face it, they're never far from them. In the way that an average male thinks about Rome 3 times a day, I guess most pop fans think about Frankie Goes to Hollywood 3 times a day. Well, probably don't, actually. But you go, again, you think of Spice Girls hits and you go, well, you know, there's Stop, Wannabe, Two Become One, Viva Forever, Spice Up Your Life, all of those. Ask someone to name Shed 7 songs and they go, don't really know. So it doesn't necessarily matter how many records you sell. What matters is how loved you are and how liked you are. And I have that theory around charity shops. I do a lot of thrifting. You go into a charity shop and you kind of go, you look at a CD and you kind of go, yep, somebody bought that because they liked it, bought the album, realised they didn't like it. Which is why CDs in charity shops, what albums turn up there a lot? Well, apart from Paul Young's No Parlay, of course, which I saw a genuine wall of No Parlay at a record shop once. I think they were taking the piss. You look at albums that just always turn up in there. If, suddenly you have a hankering to buy a copy of REM's Monster, you're never more than about 20 feet away from a second-hand copy that's about 50p, for example, on CD. And this is why I say that Creation Records had an Oasis problem, because nothing apart from Oasis really sold. So when Oasis delivered a record, they sold bucket loads. And when the Boom Bradleys delivered a record, they didn't. And this was kind of like one of the things that towards the end of 1999, it became apparent that Creation Records were, at least to some people, going to split and end. And one of the things is that, basically, Noel Gallagher decided that Oasis were going to set up their own label and license it to Sony International Records. So previously Creation Records had been licensing to Sony, but Noel was only going to go for Creation in the UK. And suddenly, and this was like December 1999, it became apparent that the big cash cow wasn't going to deliver. This happened, by the way, for Factory Records with New Order and Happy Mondays, both of whom were in the studio in 1992, whilst Factory was basically going down the tubes, and Factory were hoping for a big cash influx, which came too late and didn't save them. Creation, I think, were hoping for a cash influx that would keep them afloat on the back of this new mega-selling Oasis album that just wasn't delivered. If you want a fascinating insight into what life was like in the Britpop indie scene, this is one of the definitive tomes, by the way, to read about it. It is fascinating, and the only way you can probably more closely replicate the experience is by doing a line of coke before you read any, because, as Noel Gallagher said, everyone does a line of coke and it's as mundane as having a cup of tea. Not strictly true, of course. Before the release, the announcement of Standing on the Shoulder of Giants, we saw two firsts, solo releases by both Noel Gallagher and Liam Gallagher on compilation albums in 1998. This was, I think, the first one to come out. It was a book called, and I never actually pronounced this, so you can enjoy my stupid English vowels not being able to pronounce correctly, Tetahikan, which is an instrumental which was sent to the X-Files, the album Fight the Future, which may or may not be the soundtrack to the 1998 X-Files motion picture of variable quality, which I haven't seen since 1998. It is the first solo track to be released by Noel. It's a perfectly bang average, meandering B-side instrumental of one guy mucking about in a Porter studio with a drum machine. Totally fine, but it's not exactly what you would expect when you would think of a Noel Gallagher track. And later became an instrumental with vocals by Ian Brown for one of his solo albums, which, by the way, I haven't forgotten. I need to do a wrap-up episode for the Stone Roses. It also saw the first solo released by Liam Gallagher with Steve Craddock of the Ocean Colour Scene, and doing a cover version on here of Carnation by The Jam. And the last track on this album was also by Noel Gallagher, which was a fantastic cover version of The Jam's To Be Someone, which I think is a great song, actually. Noel played it live a number of times. Really, really good song. Both well worth listening to. Would have been a better A and B side, actually, than perhaps not just releasing the Liam Gallagher one on its own. With that in mind, and with that done and dusted, Oasis took the next step into making their fourth album, Standing on the Shoulder of Giants. At that point, untitled, and started recording in, I think, April 1999, finished in August 1999, delivered its creation in November, and that was when Noel delivered the bombshell that he didn't want to release it on Creation in the rest of the world, or license it through Creation. At least that's what I've read. Might not be true, I'm sure, because this is the internet and that's how the internet works. If it's not true, somebody, one of you, will eat down my throat and post something about how I'm completely inaccurate and I don't even know the colour of my own eyes. What we had, though, was effectively a set of demo sessions by Noel that were later bootlegged on this CD, Unfinished Sympathy, which is the Standing on the Shoulders of Giants demos, including new tracks not on the album. If you collect Oasis bootlegs, this is an essential purchase. This is basically if Standing on the Shoulder of Giants was a Noel solo album. So these demos became the bedrock for the album itself. So the demos were done with drum loops, Noel on vocals, bass and guitar, and then the album was effectively overdubs on top of the demos, using the demos as effectively a pre-existing guide version. Take the vocals off, add guitars. And for the first time in the band's history, the band's lineup wasn't announced on the cover or the sleeve of the record, because the lineup changed in the recording. So Guigsy left on, I think, the 26th of August 1999, but before then, I think on the 3rd of August, Bonehead announced that he was leaving Oasis, and his contribution to the album Standing on the Shoulder of Giants is relatively small. It does exist. Apparently he plays guitar on the track Little James, but you can't hear him anywhere else on the LP. And Giggs doesn't appear on it at all, as far as I can work out. Paul Stacey plays bass on 4 songs. Noel plays bass on some of the other ones. Paul also plays guitar on 3 songs. And if you look at the inner sleeve, the gatefold sleeve to this is a 2009 reissue. You can see Noel, Liam, and Alan White. He's all right on drums, but no reference of who's actually playing on the record or what they're doing. Why did they leave? Well, I don't really know. I've done some research into it, and that doesn't mean reading things and watching things on YouTube. I think the impression from the 2004 interview I saw with Bonehead is that he left because it's not fun anymore for him, you know. And from an extent, I completely understand that. Having conquered the world, travelled around the world 3 times, what's in it for them then apart from money? You know, playing stadiums, been there, done that. #1 albums, been there, done that. Made more money than you can reasonably hope to spend in the course of your life. Obviously that doesn't stop some people, but again, been there, done that. And you kind of go, what's the appeal for being away from home for another 9 months and travelling 1,000,000 miles and going around the world 3 times and playing America twice and Europe twice and Britain twice and Japan and Australia and South America and all these other places? And sure, you can go, yeah, that'd be really, really interesting. But you then kind of go, when you're on tour, and especially if you're not in a huge, huge band, what do you see? You see a hotel, a bus, a motorway, a venue, a hotel, a bus, a motorway, a venue, a hotel, a bus, a motorway, a venue. And that's not, you know, that's like tourism, but with all the fun bits taken out, really. You know, if your incentive is fame and glory, then fine. If your ego desperately needs, you know, adulation and recognition from people you've never met that cry when they see you in the street, I mean, that's one thing. But you then kind of go, and I mean, I've done this. I worked away from home a lot in the year 2016. I worked away from home a lot in 2005, 2006, 2007. You know, I missed my children's first steps. I miss important medical appointments. I get told that, you know, relatives and friends of mine have died on the phone whilst I'm in an office in Dunstable or somewhere. It's not, you know, and you can't be around the people that you love because you're working somewhere that you definitely don't love in exchange for money, which is quite nice. And you end up kind of going, yeah, but, you know, and like, you go away on tour, you come back, your friends have had children. You know, these are the things, you're missing out on life. And touring is fantastic, but it has to come at a certain degree of compensation. And there comes a point when you've got so much money, and this sounds bizarre when you think about it, that actually you kind of go, I really value just being at home. I value being around my friends and my family and being there for them and seeing them, and, you know, going to playing Wembley is quite nice, playing Wembley Stadium, but do you really need that? And apparently, you know, when there's recording, and things like that. There was still, the drinking and the wild sessions and the banging on the door at 4 a.m. going, come on, mate, get up, let's have some drinks. And you're asleep and you kind of just go, really? I'm a bit like, Murtaugh in Lethal Weapon. And by the way, Murtaugh in Lethal Weapon was played by, I think, Donald Glover, who I think was, Donald Glover, I think, was about 48 at the time he played that cop that was one day away from retirement, sitting on the exploding toilet in Lethal Weapon 2. And he probably had that sense of going, I'm too old for this shit. And you have an idea in your life about the things that you want to put up with as you get older, and you kind of go, yeah, I'm too old for this. And I mean, certainly, recently I've had a couple of moments in my life where I kind of think, especially last year and an early part of this year, where I thought, I'm too old for this. I can't put up with this. This isn't who I am. And you teach people what you tolerate and what you're worth, and the worth that you attach to yourself by what you're prepared to put up with. And it's important. And I guess Guigsy may have felt exactly the same thing. He left by facts with no confirmed reason as to why. And you just kind of go, maybe they didn't need to do it anymore. And maybe they didn't want to do it. And if you don't need to do it and you don't want to do it, why should you do it? It's an interesting quandary. It really, really is. And the album itself, standing on the shoulder of giants. Here's a promotional postcard, by the way, sent to me at my parents' house from Coventry in February of the year 2000. Announcing the release of the album on February the 28th, 2000. Now, according to the hype on here, the album is another brilliant collection of songs. Still a rock and roll band through and through, but this time with a touch of psychedelia, misspelt of course, and a small nod to the dance floor. Unmistakably Oasis, but a fresh start for the band on great form and looking forward to the future. Now, the strange and unusual thing around that is that Noel then also said the album should never have been made. I had no reason or desire to make music and just wrote songs for the sake of it making an album. That's what he said 10 years after the album came out. And listening to this, I can kind of think, yeah, I see your point. And like all Oasis albums, some of the best tracks are on the B-sides. But in itself, that's not necessarily, a bad thing. As an album, it's okay. It's the first album where Oasis very clearly are stepping away from their, what Neil Tennant calls the imperial phase, the bulletproof phase of the band. And when you watch live shows from the period, you can see that the band aren't automatically playing stadiums. They aren't selling out stadiums. Even the home video release, I'll get to this later, of Familiar to Millions, recorded at Wembley Stadium. There's a lot of empty seats in that stadium, people that just couldn't be bothered to turn up. Which is, interesting. But, there you are. The first single released from the album, 4th of February 2000, which was probably my least favourite week in a very, very long time for reasons that I've detailed elsewhere. I was in a major relationship that came to an end when I discovered that the person I was in the relationship with was in a relationship with somebody else. That was a difficult week. And amongst all the other things that happened that difficult week, Go Let It Out by Oasis was released. The first single by the lineup, the new lineup of the band. And so Oasis's lineup had changed, with Bonehead and Guigsy no longer in the band. The band recruited Gem Archer from Heavy Stereo, who I'd seen a couple of times in Heavy Stereo, and Andy Bell from Ride on bass, because there wasn't a bass player. And the interesting thing is, Gem joined in 1999 and had effectively a pub audition. He went to the pub and the band had a chat with him, and they were like, yeah, we know you can play, that's fine. And Noel described it as, it's my fucking band, I'll have who I want. Well, that's understandable. Heavy Stereo had supported Oasis in 1996. I saw them at Cardiff, I think. And apparently the band members were on £85 a gig for the first few weeks until things kind of settled down a little bit. And after that, I don't really care too much about, the physical or whatever the reason is. Andy Bell had been offered a role playing in a band called Gay Dad, which Liam said, I'm not having that, and brought Andy in to play bass, moving from his guitar in Ride. And that was the the lineup of the band. Although, of course, the video for Go Let It Out, Andy hadn't yet joined the group, so Noel is playing bass, which probably replicates what he did on the studio record. In fact, on what he did on quite a few of the studio records, apparently. But nonetheless, Go Let It Out came out, and it sold 400,000 copies in the UK. These days, people would sell possibly their rabbits for sales of that size, or maybe their souls to the devil. And it was a #1 in, deep breath now, United Kingdom, Ireland, Italy, Spain and Canada, of all places. But it sold very, very well. And it samples drums from a track by Johnny Jenkins called I Walk on Gilded Splinters. So it's the first time that Oasis had started to include samples in their arsenal of material, alongside the proper drums from Alan, who played over the top of that as well. And it's got this slightly groovier, slightly more relaxed, slightly more psychedelic sound. Good? Yeah. Traditional rock band? Absolutely not. And it's not one of those songs that grabs you by the throat and goes, listen to me, I am amazing. Admittedly, you know, Supersonic did that. Some might say did that. Do you know what I mean? Didn't do that. But it's, you know, very good as a song, but hasn't been played live for a long time. Unlikely to be played live again by the band, which for a #1 is like, oh, we've got a #1, but we're not going to play it live. And it's backed by 2 fantastic songs, Let's All Make Believe and As Long As They've Got Cigarettes in Hell. And I think As Long As They've Got Cigarettes in Hell, which by the way is on this CD, the demo version, which sounds suspiciously identical, by the way. The idea of the line between Noel Gallagher solo tracks and Oasis tracks, and then later on Liam Gallagher solo tracks, kind of started to get a bit blurry, really. Now, if it was up to me, As Long As They've Got Cigarettes in Hell would probably be on the album, but it isn't. There's also, by the way, on the demo CD, a couple of songs which weren't released at the time. Just Getting Older. That's fantastic. I love that. A song called Solve My Mystery, which is also known as Revolution Song, and was later released in apparently an untouched form. The original Oasis recording from 1999 was released in 2015 as a B-side by Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds. And It's a Crime, which later became Let There Be Love, which is a single a couple of albums later. So, you know, even at that point, Noel was bankrolling the best songs and holding some of the best songs back for future use, by the way. But those 2 songs are fabulous. There is also a Noel Gallagher vocal demo of Go Let It Out, presumably the same one that's on Unfinished Sympathy, that is on a promo CD, which has never come up for sale on Discogs, and I should know because I've been trying to buy one for quite some time. Last time I ordered one, it was £3.99 and also non-existent. So the album came out 28th of February, hot on the heels of a #1 single. And it sold 310,000 copies in the UK in the first week, got to #1, and 280,000 copies in the USA. I don't know how many copies it sold overall in the world, don't particularly care. But it was for me definitely a step down from Be Here Now, which was bloated cocaine fueled madness, and into something that was Oasis had started to become less exciting and more a competent, quite good stadium rock band. And even though there was this huge air of enthusiasm around the band, I myself was starting to drift away from that. I thought, yeah, you're going in a direction I can't necessarily follow. So for the first time on an Oasis album, we had samples, loops, sitar, mellotron, weird keyboards making weird noises and all those type of things. And it opens with, in my opinion, still one of the finest intro songs of all time, Fucking in the Bushes, which takes its title from an Isle of Wight documentary about the 1970 Isle of Wight festival, where they interviewed the locals and they were going, people running around naked, fucking in the bushes and all that type of stuff, alongside a bunch of samples, loops, grungy guitar, overdubbed drums, and just generally swaggers around like a complete monster. It's a great track. I love it to bits, and I wish there were more songs like it. Walmart wouldn't stock the album because of the title. I don't know if they did do a version with a slightly different title or not. Walmart also get an appearance in an upcoming episode about Morrissey, because they wouldn't like an album with a gun on the cover. Well, as Joe Kender would say. Then we've got Go Let It Out, which became a live staple. And then the second single release from the album is Who Feels Love. And Who Feels Love is, it's okay. I quite like it. It's not astonishing. It's not amazing. It sounds less urgent. The whole of this album sounds less urgent from anything else. And you then kind of go, right, so let's have a look and see what the cover art is. And you go, well, it's a woman wearing sunglasses with the album cover on. And you kind of go, this is not an iconic cover in the way in which, let's say, the cover of Stand By Me or Wonderwall is iconic. It's starting to lose its individuality. It's just not as good. And for the first time ever, of course, Oasis have ditched their black and white box potato logo in favour of something. Now, sometimes bands change the logo, but even things when you change the lineup, you change the logo, you start to go, yeah, the imperial phase, the peak when you're at the top of the mountain, that's ended now. You're just another band. And Oasis were becoming just another band. And Who Feels Love is, it's pretty good. It's fine, but it's not amazing. However, it does have 2 B-sides on the single One Way Road, covered by Paul Weller in the year 2004, I believe, and a cover version of a song by a band called Beatles, you may have heard of them, called Helter Skelter. It's also got, this is a weird one, the Mini Max CD single, which is where you had a CD, but also a layer of clear plastic, so the silver isn't printed on it. And you end up kind of going, well, that's, all well and good, but it just looks a bit weird. There was a trend around these in around 1999, 2000. I don't fully understand why, but there you go. So track 4 on the album, after Who Feels Love, is Put Your Money Where Your Mouth Is. And it's a perfectly average, bang average chunker of a rock track. Never played live, not vastly interesting, not quite sure why it exists. It's definitely in the wrong place on the album, by the way. But there it is, and it's like very, very, very forgettable indeed. And it has, some lyrics in it which are okay, some lyrics which are not okay. And so, for example, and I'm just going to pick out a lyric here from "Put Your Money Where Your Mouth Is" from the CD booklet. Your mama says that you was real. Put your money where your mouth is. Your mama says that you was real. Ready or not, come what may, the bets are going down for Judgment Day. It doesn't really mean anything. Sorry, guys, it doesn't. Obviously lyrics have never been a particular strong point, but you kind of go, what are you trying to communicate here? What are you trying to say? By the way, this is an original 2000 CD. I've just changed the booklet around so that that's the cover on my CD, because I think that's a better cover than this. And talking of which, and I haven't mentioned that yet, this cover here of the album, if you zoom way, 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 way deep into it, features the photo that is later excerpted from Go Let It Out there on the front. So on the top of one of the buildings. I think this is the New York skyline. I'm not sure why it's on the cover of the record. I'm not sure what it signifies. It doesn't have that sense of awesome, iconic flavour that the other album covers had. And that's where you start to think, okay, someone looks at it, yeah, that'll do. And nobody went, oh, by the way, Noel, you're missing it should be shoulders, not shoulder. Yes, boss. Whatever. Track 5 on the album is Little James. Little James is, well, I'm not a fan. And I'm not a fan for 2 reasons. One, the rhyming structure is miserably unimaginative. Play with your toys, even though they make noise. What a lot of, and it's like, really, it's an AABB kind of lyric. There's no great lyricism in it at all. And there's like, sailed out to sea, your mum and me, you swam the ocean like a child, life around us was so wild, thank you for your smile, you make it all worthwhile. It's not a great lyric. I know it's sincere and Liam means it, and that in itself is something, and he's starting to write songs, that's good, but it's not a great song, it's not very good, it's B-side stuff, and it's probably put on the album to please an ego, in much the same way as some of the Dave Garn songs on the Depeche Mode albums. They aren't all that in a bag of chips. They're not great, but they're there because they have to be there. Because contractually, Dave Garn is allowed to put between 3 and 4 songs on each one of the albums, so that the band's division of work and workload is more appropriate. Little James has only been played live once, acoustic, at a radio station in Portland. And as I said, Bonehead does play some guitar on this, on the studio recording, but yeah, it's not great, is it? So let's flip over to side 2 of the record. And side 2 of the record is, well, more of the same, really. Nothing too exceptional on it. It opens with Sunday Morning Call, the 3rd single released from the album, which Noel hates. Totally hates it. I totally understand Sunday Morning Call, why he doesn't like it. It's okay. It's a song. It's nothing more than that. In fact, no, let me think. Is Sunday Morning Call have I got this wrong? Oh yeah, I've got it wrong. Okay. Skip that. Let's come back and go Gas Panic opens side 2. Gas Panic is a lot better, by the way. It's better than you might expect. Described and introduced live as this one's for all your coke heads. Effectively about people that take drugs and that sense of creeping paranoia that you have when the drugs don't work anymore. There's a demo of Gas Panic that was released on a CD single of Who Feels Love in Japan, but also released on a cover-mounted CD with the Times or the Independent in 2002, which I have in another room over there, featuring the Noel vocal. And that is, as far as my ears can tell me, the same mix and recording that's on this. So no need to track that down unless you absolutely have to. Talking of which, a lot of B-sides haven't been reissued since their original CD and vinyl issues. Come on, guys. Oasis have put out literally anything as a reissue. Do your job and put them out. Right, Gas Panic is good, played live. It makes an appearance on Familiar to Millions, which is quite good. It also was a staple of the tour, and I quite like it, actually. It's probably one of the better songs on the album. Track 7 is Where Did It All Go Wrong? Now, Where Did It All Go Wrong? Great title, taken from a quote from a hotel cleaner. Came into George Best's hotel room, and there he was, surrounded by, birds, women, and drink, and loads of money. And the hotel cleaner came in and went, "Oh, George, where did it all go wrong?" And, it's a great song, actually. Really like Where Did It All Go Wrong. Mooted as a potential single at one point. Got a promo release. Here is a Columbia Records, Sony Columbia Records. Now it's Epic, actually. An Epic 2-track CD promo. Now, this features, excitingly, the semi-acoustic version of the track, which is a different recording of Where Did It All Go Wrong. It's my preferred recording of the song. I think this was recorded in Wheeler End Studios in December 1999, a little too late to be released on the album, but I think it's a great little song. I really like Where Did It All Go Wrong, and it's certainly better than the next single. It was only played 28 times live. It was dropped by the time the band got to Mexico. That's a real shame. But it made at least one more play live than the 8th track, the 3rd and final single to be released from the album, Sunday Morning Call, which I mentioned 3 minutes ago, and is, Noel hates it. So much so that on the Time Flies 2009 compilation album, Sunday Morning Call is a secret hidden song. And by the way, the single best Oasis release is the DVD of Time Flies, because it has Noel's commentary on it, and Noel says things like, "I hate this song, I have no idea why it came out." And sometimes a little honesty goes a long, long way. Noel hates it. I totally get that. I really, really do. And he said in 2010, "It's shit. I hate that song. I hate it so much, I left it out of the greatest hits album. That's how much I hate it. And I wrote it," which is exactly true. That, I think, is in the commentary. And I agree with him entirely on that. It's not great at all. So we have 2 songs left on the album. I Can See a Liar, Your Pants Are on Fire, etc, etc, etc. Probably something rhyming with the word pyre in there. Only played 6 times. Twice for television, at 4 gigs in early 2000. I Can See a Liar, and then Roll It Over is the last song on the album. An Epic. It's an attempt to kind of capture the sense of a champagne supernova, but it doesn't quite work. It's like somebody released the first draft of Champagne Supernova, and it's not as good. good, but not as good. And never played live by the band. It was played live by Liam at Nebworth, and not before that. So we also have another couple of B-sides which came out around about this time. But in summary, it's definitely a lesser Oasis album. It's probably my least favourite Oasis album. It's got 3 or 4 good songs on. It's got 2 or 3 real stinkers on it. And the rest are just, meh. Yeah, so Sunday Morning Call was released on the 3rd of July 2000, my 27th birthday. It's backed with 2 extra songs, Carry Us All, which I think is on the demos, and Full On. Full On was played at sound checks by the band in 1997 and 1998, by the way, and got to number 4 in the UK charts. Who Feels Love got to number 4 in the UK charts on the 17th of April 2000. It was the first single not to make, by the way, Who Feels Love was the first single not to make the top 3 since Cigarettes and Alcohol 6 years before. So you could sense Oasis were peaking. What happened after that? Well, like a lot of bands, the band went on tour. Like a lot of bands, they also got to the point where bands were starting to put out promotional CDs on the cover of newspapers. And for no other reason other than I own it, here is the cover-mounted CD that came with the Independent newspaper in February 2000, featuring Live Forever, Round Our Way, Champagne Supernova, Stand By Me, and some might say, although someone would argue, if you don't know what Oasis sound like by the year 2000, what planet were you living on? Possibly. I mean, you might think that. I couldn't possibly comment. But yeah, it's got Round Our Way on it, which as far as I know, I don't think that was on the master plan. Should have been. And it's got the live versions of Champagne Supernova and Live Forever. So, yeah, nice selection of B-sides there for you for the price of a newspaper. The band went on tour. And I saw the band on this tour. And I was like, not vastly impressed. I saw them at Reading, which was when Noel came back to the band. So this tour saw the release of the band's first official live album, CD, and recently repressed vinyl, Familiar to Millions. Now, I think Familiar to Millions exists for a very, very specific reason, and it probably wasn't intended to be released. It was a simulcast, that's a terrible word, isn't it, on Sky Television in the UK. So there were 2 shows, first on the 21st of July and the second on the 22nd of July. Every part of the official release comes from the 21st of July 2000. And that's for 2 reasons. The first one is Noel left the tour on or around the 9th of June. And the band had to cancel 4 shows. Noel left the tour because, frankly, Liam was being an arsehole. And Liam was still drinking, shouting, telling people what he thought of them. Allegedly, he questioned the parenthood of one of Noel's daughters. And unsurprisingly, Noel ain't going to be taking that one lightly, whether you're in a band with him or not. And just walked off the tour and said, I cannot play with that man. Which is understandable, because when you're around somebody in close proximity on tour or in a family or something like that, and obviously in Oasis that's both of them, you'll find that the behaviour of one person can get really, really annoying. If it's vaguely annoying, suddenly when you're on tour and in a band with them, it becomes infuriating. And then that person, and I don't know what Liam's like now, but at the time he definitely seemed to be a bit of an arsehole, keen on drinking, keen on telling people what he thought. Pretty much the kind of confrontational, unfiltered personality that had a second career lined up for him, standing on the desks in job centres, throwing chairs around while security guards kind of taser him. That is the certain fate that Liam managed to avoid by having a talented brother and a decent voice. But it didn't stop him from being a dick at this period of time, drinking too much, pissing people off, being quite selfish, blowing out gigs. So, for example, MTV's Unplugged, because, the pub's more fun than doing my actual job that's made me a millionaire. That means I don't have to go to work. And I'm like, yes, it is. But if you've been offered a chance to do MTV Unplugged, you do it. Because it's that, or you could be on the dole for the rest of your life. A man saved from his certain fate of destitute unemployment, merely by having the gift of a golden voice, as Leonard Cohen had it, and one of the best songwriters on the planet in Noel Gallagher. And without those two things, he would be a nobody. And certainly, if you're in a band and suddenly the guy that sings for you questions the parenthood of your children, unsurprisingly, you're going to go, fuck this, and walk off. And that's exactly what Noel did. The band cancelled 4 shows, and then all of a sudden they were touring Europe without Noel, with Matt Dayton on guitar, and no Noel sung songs in the set. Whilst Gem and Andy were, probably sat there kind of going, what the hell kind of circus have I walked into here? Well, the Oasis circus, and my God, it's a big one. With contractual obligations. Noel returned 2 shows in the UK and Ireland. The first one I think was in Dublin. The second one were these 2 shows in Wembley. The first night of the tour was, the first night of Wembley went quite well. So I listened to the vinyl of this. This is the 25th anniversary repressing, and I watched the DVD the other day, and it's brought some thoughts and some memories back around seeing the band on this tour. The first thing I will say is, as a live album, Familiar to Millions is quite good. By the way, again, I've changed the cover. I think this is a better cover than the one which I've shown you on there. But what I do find quite surprising about Familiar to Millions is that even on this version that they've recently repressed, this is the H&B exclusive alternate artwork and silver vinyl. Well, more correctly, blue marble vinyl version. Oh, look at the hits on that. This was originally released as a triple album, black vinyl, limited to 1,000 copies in November 2000, and apparently went for quite a lot of money online, but now you can get it for a far more affordable cost. And I decided, well, yeah, okay, once all the bills have been paid for, I might as well treat myself. It comes in a lovely triple gatefold sleeve, so look at the hits on that. Let's open it up and see what there is. Now, in my mind, the blue actually is the colour of the album. It's not an alternate artwork, the blue is the colour. And then it kind of opens out into this trifold package, one for each of the vinyl discs there, which gives you a slightly different cover to the double CD. But the strange thing is, even though this is the 25th anniversary version of the album, and even though this is the long-awaited vinyl repressing of it, having listened to it, I was still listening to it today literally with my hands over my eyes at what I was experiencing. Because even though you're going to do a domestic home video DVD release of an album, I'm sat there listening to it without any picture of, any idea of what's going on. And the first words that come out of Liam's mouth are fucking shithole. Really? You're headlining Wembley Stadium and you say the place is a fucking shithole. You've just insulted everybody, the 72,000 people that have put down money for you. You're a little drunk, you're a little arsey, and then you interject the beginning of Who Feels Love with yet more heckles about somebody because there's someone's got a banner of Noel and say, take that down, he's not fucking worth it. And then just before you get to, I think it's cigarettes and alcohol, on the vinyl, especially completely shorn of context, there is a disgraceful, get your tits out for the lads, put your tits on the screen. I'm like, really? This is the shit we're dealing with now? Still? This sexist fucking bollocks where you're objectifying women and you're saying the only reason you're on a man's shoulders is so you can get your tits out on the screen to please Liam, who's drunk? Fuck off, mate. Learn some manners. Don't do that. That's rude as shit. It really, really is. And of course, if you're on your boyfriend's shoulders and 72,000 people are looking at you and Liam Gallagher is saying, get your tits out, there's 2 things you do. One, you go no, and then you get called a lesbian or something by an idiot who's drunk and sexist and very possibly stupider than a box of rocks. Or you do it and you hope the moment goes away forever, which would have been fine if the second gig hadn't happened, which means that that person on that man's shoulders, their only appearance on the DVD is a shot of them and their breasts. And I'm like, oh, God. And these were the type of people that made me not want to go to Oasis gigs anymore. The rise of the sexist, the leery, and let's be blunt, the stupid. Because they didn't know how to behave around other people. And it was really kind of scary. Watching the DVD, there's a fascinating section in the extras during the sound check where they follow the security teams around, and they follow the security teams as they deal with and break up fights as drunk people that have drunk too many tins of lager have arguments and punch each other in massive crowds, and eject the people from the venue. And there's moments where they're following people that have been ejected out of the show. So during the show, they're interviewing them, and there's like three lads that go, I only went on a crowd surf, man. Look at me. And then they walked me out of the venue, and now I've got to go. Well, don't fucking crowd surf. Don't kick people in the head, man. It's obvious. Don't moan about how your night is ruined. Why doesn't the guy that got kicked in the head by you whilst you were crowd surfing have a words with you and see what you think about it? You know, Frank Turner, rightly or wrongly, has two rules about his shows. One, don't be a dick. And two, don't be a dick to anybody around you. And if everybody follows those two rules, it's going to be a good evening. And if you're going around crowd surfing and kicking people in the head, you fulfill both. One, being a dick, and two, being a dick to the people around you. In fact, Oasis changed the security industry for the British concert-going public, because the crowds on the 1997 tour were so objectionable, violent and unpredictable that they now do a security briefing before every show, and they go, this, according to the ticket sales, is the demographic, the male-female split, the age split, the likely kind of degree of temperaments in the crowd. Are they going to be drunk, or are they going to be on pills? Are we going to have overdoses? Are we going to have fights? Is everyone going to be hugging each other going, I fucking love you, man? Or is it going to be people punching somebody because somebody looked at their bird or spilt their pint? Unsurprisingly, Oasis were in the latter section, and Oasis crowds got so bad, especially in 1997, that they did the first time anybody had really done it is they brought their own security teams out on tour with them to manage the dickheads in the crowds. Well done, you knobheads. You've made everything bad for the rest of us because you can't control having a booze. And then you kind of go, watching that on the DVD, and you kind of go, yeah, you really do, don't you? You put 72,000 people together, and there's going to be some nutters in there. And not only that, if you think about the number of people that are psychopaths, genuine, like, diagnosed psychopaths, 1% of the population is a psychopath to some degree, which means they have a lack of empathy and consideration for their fellow humans. And you end up kind of going, that's 720 psychopaths in a crowd of 72,000 people. I don't like those odds. I really don't. And then if you think about that from a statistical point of view, you've almost definitely been to a gig that a murderer's been at. You might have stood next to one at a gig and not known. It's like, that don't make me feel safe. But again, you could also, never leave the house, never talk to anybody else, which sometimes seems an attractive option, but not always. Anyway, familiar to millions. I wish they'd edited Liam being an arsehole out of night one and the shot with the tits on the screen. You don't need it. Leave that crap for Motley Crue's live albums and live DVDs. Don't put it in your Oasis nonsense. We're beyond that shit. Of course, night two for Oasis at Wembley was, perhaps amazingly, even worse. One of the worst gigs I ever saw. In fact, because I didn't have a VHS player, I went over to my dad's house and I recorded it off Sky TV at my dad's house onto a VHS tape. Now, of course, it's all on YouTube, so I don't have to bother. And it was atrocious, worse even than Ian McCulloch at Leicester Polytechnic in 1992. Liam apparently had come home and for the first time in quite some weeks, and his then ex had cleaned out the house, apparently left him with not even a, quote, fucking tea bag, unquote, and he spent most of the show on broadcast on national television to millions of people, swearing, generally being objectionable, flicking the V's to Noel because Noel dared to not put up with his shit, and generally being an obnoxious arsehole that you don't want to be around, slurring words, singing badly, generally just being an absolutely unpleasant human being. Yes, I get that, you might be really, really annoyed. You've headlined Wembley Stadium, you've come back, your ex-wife has cleaned out your house, but guess what? In 18 hours, you're going to be headlining Wembley Stadium, and the answer to that is not to get absolutely shit-faced and broadcast it all over national television. I'm kind of watching it and going, yeah, I completely understand why you're having a bad day, but don't take it out on 72,000 people, each of which has spent probably 30, 40 quid to get there, plus all the sacrifices that have been made to get there. do your job and lose your shit on Monday morning. I think Familiar to Millions exists because, having seen that show, the second show at Wembley, it is so bad. I think Noel thought, we can't use that show. That show is broadcast on television and we need to wipe the existence of that show off the map. And the only way we can do that is to put out a live album and a live DVD. So when people think about Oasis at Wembley, they think about the night where Liam wasn't shit-faced aggressive and swearing at absolutely everybody around him and generally being a horrible human being. We all have memories of bad nights of our lives. Liam had his broadcast in front of millions of people on television, and it just made me feel just frankly thoroughly depressed, because I was going, I've got to go to work on a Monday. It doesn't matter how bad my life is. My life was pretty rough in the year 2000, but I have to go and strap on the grin and perform so that people around me don't really know what's happening. And that's called professionalism. It's called taking your job seriously. It's called being an adult. And going around doing the stuff that Liam did that night is just embarrassing. And I could see, you know, especially after one of Liam's very many rants about something to do with terrible women, of which undoubtedly the red pillars would be, you know, oh, he sees through it all. Women are master manipulators, liars. They're all terrible and out for as much as they can get. He saw the truth, man. And like, and after all of that, Noel is like, I'd just like to say peace and love to everybody in the venue, because it's important to temper, you know, the aggression and the idiocy that was happening on that day. And I think the existence of Familiar to Millions is to wipe out completely that terrible, terrible show from the collective consciousness of the nation. And it would have succeeded if it hadn't been for you damn kids on YouTube. Well, that brings the standing on the shoulder of giants and Familiar to Millions era kind of to a close. The band played some more shows. I saw one in Reading. Kind of wish that I hadn't bought a ticket for Reading after having seen the TV broadcast, but I was in there and I was like, you know what, that's the last time I'm going to see Oasis for a long time. I'm just going to quietly sweat it out, and my judgment was right. The show at Reading was okay, but the crowd was, they had a percentage of arseholes in the crowd. And of course, when the lead singer of the band is an arsehole and telling everyone to get their tits out and swearing and drinking and generally fighting and being an unpleasant human being, that encourages other people to behave equally badly. And, certainly by the last time I saw Oasis, I had a distinct sense of fear of people in the crowd going, these people around me, some of them are not nice, and I don't like being around people that are not nice. I'm willing to take great steps to surround myself with people that work on my frequency, that have care, consideration and respect for their fellow humans. And some of the people at the shows just absolutely weren't. I had the same sense when I was watching the Stone Roses and Robbie Williams, and take that actually in 2011, of people that had forgotten what it was like to be around other people and were being selfish and aggressive and generally unpleasant. I thought, I don't like being in crowds of this size with people like this. So I refused to go and see Oasis again. Hopefully now everything's a lot better, everyone's a lot nicer, a lot more mature. Liam apparently seems to have mellowed, which is long, long, long overdue, as we will get to when I talk about other Oasis records. But things kind of settled themselves down. And in 2001, the band played Rock in Rio. They also played the 10 Years of Noise and Confusion tour. This bootleg DVD taken from the Sky TV broadcast at Glasgow Barrowlands on the 14th of October 2001, featuring Johnny Marr on Champagne Supernova, and a set that was similar but not quite the same. So, for example, Morning Glory, Columbia, Fade Away, Half the World Away, Whatever, The Master Plan, Slide Away, She's Electric, all came back into the set. So it was a more deep cuts kind of set. It's a good show? Yeah, fine, absolutely great. Inevitably going to get a CD, DVD, LP release at some point when everything dies up. But in the meantime, it worked well as a kind of a B-sides and deep cuts kind of tour in small venues. But I was like, yeah, but Liam's a dick. I don't want to be around that. I don't want to put myself in a situation where I could be like that. So, for example, like seeing Guns N' Roses. The last time I saw Guns N' Roses, Axl came on at 11:45, and I was in Nottingham, and I looked around, and there were 300 people going crazy at the Nottingham ice rink, which, by the way, had sold 14,000 tickets at 2 o'clock in the morning whilst the band were playing Paradise City. And I was there going, can't do this again. I cannot sanction this buffoonery. To quote the great Tommy Lee Jones on the set of, I think it's Batman Forever. Or is it Batman and Robin? I can never remember. Batman Forever Never? Never Forever Batman? Doesn't really matter. But I cannot sanction that buffoonery. And at that point, I mean, it really was the Wembley TV broadcast where I thought, I've gone from liking the band to you know, loving the band to being aware of the band. You know, you could think in 6 weeks, Liam lost both his brother and his bandmate and his wife. And you kind of go, why is that? What's causing that? That was a problem, and something I didn't really want to be around. So I didn't see Oasis again. I saw Noel solo in 2002, but I didn't see Oasis again. And one of the reasons, amongst many other reasons, was that behaviour on that night. And I thought, I don't ever want to put down a lot of money and see something like that. I don't want to be looking forward to something like that and to have it effectively just dismissed as unimportant. You know, just turn up, do your job. The drama can wait. And you know, life's too short for bad people, bad moments, and bad food. So at that point, and bad albums, come to think of it, so I don't listen to Standing on the Shoulder of Giants too often. So that's me talking about the Oasis, the pop band, popular British beat combo there, and the recently reissued Familiar to Millions on vinyl, which, by the way, listening to it on vinyl and you know, sticking the needle down on the record and having Liam's exhortation for a bird to show his tits and go, you don't need a phone box, you just need the tart with the tits out, and go, that is a dick move, mate. Just a dick move. Nobody needs it. Nobody wants it. Stop that nonsense. So I think it's fair to say, probably in my experience, Familiar to Millions is a bad live album. Glad that I've got it. Fascinating DVD when you watch the behind the scenes extras. And also, Standing on the Shoulder of Giants, not the best Oasis album ever. But the future does get better, by the way, for Oasis. And it also gets better for the rest of us. Because as you get older, the way I've always thought about it is we think about what our life wants to be. And if your life is like a slab of granite, take a quote from Michelangelo when he made, I think, was it the Statue of David? Someone said, how did you do it? And I just chipped away all the bits that didn't look like it. That's what we do. We chip away all the bits that don't feel or look like us over time. And then you try and keep it the way it always is. And that's part of growing older through life. So there's your life lessons. There's your pop music. So in the meantime, take care of yourselves and each other, as Jerry Springer would say. Stay beautiful, beautiful ones, and be excellent to each other. And I will see you some other time. So yes, have a lovely time in the meantime. Thank you very much. And don't forget, potato, potato, potato. I will be wearing this Oasis t-shirt at every single Oasis episode I do from now on. Because one could say that the songs sound the same, so the t-shirts must stay the same. Right, that's an hour about the year 2000. See you all soon. Thank you. Okay, bye, I think. Let's find the off button on this. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Bye-bye.